Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks so much for spending some time with us. It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell. You're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today, we're joined by Mercedes Maidana. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Of course. So tell us all about who you are and why you do what you do.
Okay, so I'm originally from Argentina. I've been living in the States for around 20 years. And in my 20s, I moved to Hawaii. I fell in love with surfing at the time. But it was just a passion, a hobby. It became a little bit more once I moved to Hawaii. And I realized that I wanted to become a big wave surfer. So I entered a new journey, and in just 4 years since I first stood on a surfboard at age 21, in 4 years I became one of the best three big wave surfers in the world in the female category for 3 years in a row, and that was because I put a whole lot of focus, and I used all these manifestation tools to make like a huge, in a way, impossible dream happen, and taking a whole lot of action. And I manifested at the time my wildest dreams that I wanted to be sponsored by the company Patagonia. It's a clothing company. And I wanted them to pay me to go all over the world, chasing huge waves. And I was able to accomplish that. It took me 3 years, and there I was. And that lasted for around 6 years that I was a professional big wave surfer. So what that means is that I would chase big swells and big storms on the computer. And I was living in Hawaii, and I would see, okay, there's one in Tahiti next week. Get on a plane and get the best waves I could, get pictures, videos, and they would use that for catalogs or their media purposes. So in a way, I was living the life, and I was also coaching women to manifest their dreams, their business dreams. So I was having these two careers, and I was absolutely passionate about both. And in 2014, I suffered a traumatic brain injury surfing huge waves in Oregon. And my life literally shifted, it changed in a second. And that became, to make it short, suddenly I couldn't surf anymore. I lost my sponsorship. I couldn't coach anymore because it became depression. My brain health was really damaged, and I got divorced 3 months later after my concussion. My husband at the time, we were not in the healthiest relationship, and that was like the last straw. And he said, okay, I'm done with you, like taking all these risks consistently when I tell you not to do it. So that was a lot for him to see me like that, and not to, excuse it. It's just what happened. And suddenly I was divorced. I had to leave the house because it was his family's house. I had to find a home. I had no job, no career. I couldn't surf. It was my identity that I built for years. And I entered a whole journey of a breakdown, like probably we can call it the dark night of the soul, that took around 6 years of a lot of healing. I moved to Austin to do brain treatments. And for me, it was heartbreaking to leave Hawaii, leave the ocean, be landlocked. But I knew I needed to save my life, and that's where I need to go. I need to remove myself from the ocean and not be exposed to any waves that could harm me. And I couldn't help it, so I had to leave the place. And in Austin, I've been 6 years doing a whole lot of medical treatments. But the deeper healing that I've done as the years passed, I realized that I need to do a whole lot of inner healing. I've had complex PTSD, and it got to a point that the medical treatments were not enough. So I need to work on my emotional being. And that's it was almost like a Pandora box opened of a whole lot of childhood trauma and just a lot of pain that I never processed. And everything had to be looked at, processed, loved, healed, and for me to move on.
Wow. So, I mean, obviously terrible and traumatic that that happened to you, but what a lot of self-work that came out of that, it sounds like.
Yes. Yes. It was really hard. I never ever wish it on anyone. A brain injury is, they call it an invisible injury. And, I'm a surfer. I look fit. I have my muscles. Some people would be like, you look good. What are you talking about? And inside, I couldn't do the task of the day. I could not even answer a text message. It would take so much brain energy to fix one meal. It would be like climbing Everest throughout the day. So I had to go back to the basics. And yes, in that, I had to learn to really love myself without any identity of accomplishments. I was actually in the opposite of accomplishments. And I had to learn to really take care of myself as if I was a loving mother to that little wounded child. And that's when the new healing journey started for me, that it was something I never done before in my life until my late 30s. And by doing that day in and day out for years, I got to a place where I actually found my fulfillment in living a very simple life without having the ocean next to me. That for me, that was everything. And nothing outside was perfect or great, but I got to a place of feeling very fulfilled with myself and learning to love myself with all my darkness and my limitations. And when I actually claimed that I was feeling very content and fulfilled, the next day I met my nowadays husband. Then the very next day, and it was just fantastic. I was working as a waitress, and suddenly I'm a waitress in Austin, and I was so happy. And I met this wonderful man, and from there on, I feel like the life of abundance for me unfolded. And we were able to build a business together. We started with his business. Now, once his business was up and running, I came back to my coaching a year ago, and my business is going much better than I ever thought it would go. It feels like once things are in alignment, they just happen. We have a baby. I had my baby when I was almost 41, that I thought I would never be a mother. We were able to move from Austin to Corpus Christi, that we have the beach right here. So we surf every morning. So in a way, I was able to build a beautiful life due to all the journey that happened.
Wow, what an amazing story.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm assuming you probably had no idea life was gonna unfold the way it has for you.
No. And I actually had moments that were very dark for me, and I couldn't see any kind of hope whatsoever. I considered taking my life, and I mean, it was really, really difficult. Um, thank God I didn't. Thank God I asked for help, and I got help. And no, I couldn't see anything beyond darkness. So it's just incredible what, putting a little one foot in front of the other and surrendering and asking for help, asking the universe, asking other people, asking therapists, asking for help can bring you to a whole new path. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Do you feel, if you don't mind me asking, is it still a journey for you? Are you still having to navigate the world a little differently because of your brain injury that you had?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will always have symptoms. This is how it goes. It was a very severe injury, and my symptoms, they're basically PTSD, and they come when I overextend myself, when I work too much, when I don't take care of myself or my self care. It creeps in, and suddenly I have a breakdown. That's what I call it. My breakdowns, and it's basically exhaustion. And that takes me to feeling depressed, and not even sad. It goes straight to depressed. So I've had to work with that. And for me, it's a lot of managing a condition that is going to be lifelong. At this point, I accept that. Even though I do all the medical things, I take the best supplements, I eat the best diet, I do my meditation, I do all the things that I take medication as well. And I say with a lot of pride, because I do whatever I need to do to be well and alive. And And still, I'm going to have these cycles when I'm not taking good care of myself, if I'm not really diligent on my self care. And yes, and it's a journey for me to love and accept myself. That this is me, this is the condition I have, not me as my identity, but yes, I come with this package. I love myself with my depression. I love myself with my anxiety. And when I get to that point, is when everything releases, and it's almost like 90% of my struggle lifts up. But it's incredible how my ego brain still wants to give a fight and try to change something that is not going to change instead of loving it and embracing it.
Yeah, you bring up a really, I think, beautiful point and again, your journey's been definitely significant by all means. But for folks who are even maybe haven't gone on the path that you've been on or had a traumatic injury to get themselves to that point, you brought up the point of like self love and self care. And that's somewhere like I think everybody could do better, right? Myself so included in that. That's something that I am always trying to kind of find an integrated balance across the board on. Is that something that, you find yourself constantly sharing with others just from your path and your experience that you've been on, but also looking around and seeing how people aren't maybe loving themselves as they should?
Absolutely. I see it. I mean, I see it in most of us, me included. What a journey it is to be present and to put things in their place where they belong, to have the priorities, right? And yeah, I feel like if we could all put a little bit of focus and attention in you know, in how can we be there for ourselves in this moment. Because when we say self care, at least it feels like ginormous. It's like, oh, no, you want me to go to the gym, go for walks, meditate, make healthy meals, go to sleep early. There's so many things that involve self care for us to be successful in self care. So for me, the work is to ask that little girl inside of me, or if you're a man, that little boy inside, that little true self that resides is your inner essence, to ask them, what do you need right now in this moment? And sometimes it is, okay, I need to drop the phone and I need to go outside and breathe some air. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah, no, that's a good reminder for sure. So one thing we talk about here on this podcast is money, right? And money memories. What's a money memory that you had as a child or a younger person that helped mold your relationship to money as an adult?
Well, something that I've been realizing lately that for me is a big one, that in the last year we bought our house, and that was a huge leap into abundance for us. We really leaped, actually our income 10x in the last years. We were, it's not that we're rich or anything, but we were making, let's say, 30 grand with these tiny jobs a year, and now we have an income of 300,000 with our businesses. So it was a big shift. But I remember when things started to happen, and mostly when I was doing the mortgage process, I started to feel panic, absolute terror as I was doing the process. And I didn't know why. And I really wanted to sabotage the whole purchase. I wanted the mortgage people to say, no, no, you don't qualify. Okay, I can stay in my small apartment, renting, fine. But it was so big. And what was coming up for me, that it makes sound ridiculous, was that there was something there saying that when you buy the house, Leo, my partner, my husband, will die. It was as strong as that. When you buy the house, he will die. So I had to look at it in therapy and connect it with my father that passed away when I was 15. He passed away at 48 from a heart attack in front of me. And sorry, I'm sorry if this is triggering the details. I'm sorry. I don't want
No,
to.
no. Thank you for sharing and thank you for being around vulnerable to be open to share.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I mean, it was just a surprising death at a very young age. And and the connection there was that when, my father was an alcoholic, I grew up in a childhood where we had money, but then we had no money. It was a roller coaster. When he didn't drink, he was a good engineer making money. Then they would fire him as he drank, and we were broke. And it was crazy. I never had financial stability, and I always felt more poor than wealthy or middle, not even wealthy, middle class. Um, So then when he got sober and he got 6 years of his life sober, my father, and he started to actually make really good money. He was selling life insurance and he was an A-time go-getter making great money. And then he died when we were fine with money, when we were going to the next level. He never even got to really enjoy all the abundance that he was creating. And so in that, there was the connection that you go to the next level and he dies. And it was strong. I was shaking. I mean, it was not a fun process to do the mortgage. It took me a good 2 months that I was in a trauma mode. It was almost like tangible. He's not dead. He's not dead. Until I had to start processing this, being aware of what was going on, what was running inside of me, and start, finding ways for my inner child, the little girl that was terrorized, to feel safe. And that is funny because one of the ways that I found is crazy. Like I had to attend to every level of that girl. So some levels in really the outer, taking outer action. And one of those things were that I bought a life insurance. Like we bought a life insurance for Leo. That little girl needs to feel that if he dies, I'm not on the street. We're putting all our money here, the down payments. So, like, to take action in the actual world, like tangible. Okay, how am I gonna feel safe? How can I answer to every fear that this little girl has? She was certain he was gonna die. So, okay, we get a policy. Thank God he's alive and well. He freaks out when he's like, "You want me dead?" I'm like, "No, I want you not dead." He's like, "Why do we have to talk about these things, money and death?" I'm like, "Well, this is my trauma. This is what I went through." But through working through this, I was able to relax and then also start telling that little girl, this is not your reality. That was the past. Look at Leo. He's healthy. He's not an alcoholic that eats horribly bad for the last 20 years and just died from a heart attack. Had a lineage of family that had heart problems. No, my partner is healthy. His relatives live till they're old. So I have to tell my little girl inside all these things why she can be safe and relax and start trusting. And yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a full-on journey.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. Both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. So, kind of going in hand with money memories is financial infidelities. So, what's a financial infidelity that you've experienced or witnessed that you think that others could learn from?
You know, the one that just came up actually is when I was younger, I dated a man that he was very famous. He's a rock star in my country, very, very famous and very wealthy. And I was madly, madly in love with him. I was with him for 2 years and he was 24 years older than me. And of course, now we can see my father died when I was 15. And I go with this man and they look similar. I mean, all these things we have to, looking for that fatherly last and so. But at the moment, I didn't know all that. And I was just madly in love with this person. And the story is that he ended up cheating on me with a very famous actress. And they got married 3 months after he left me. And it was a huge humiliation for me because he was part of our family. He was really part of our family. We loved him. We welcomed him. He was one more he was not the rock star in our family. And then from one day to the next, he's on the magazines with another woman, like with a famous woman. It was like the Brad Pitt, kind of Angelina Jolie. Like it was so, and it was at the same time. And I was like, this is so similar, the humiliation on the magazines. And that's when I actually left my country, Argentina, because of that. I couldn't handle it. And I went to Brazil. And that's when I started surfing and all this chapter unfolded. But in regards to money, I remember that he would come with all these very expensive gifts every time there was an argument with him, or when I was doubtful of his, faithfulness, and I would bring like some doubts, and that would come with tears and arguments. So the next thing I knew, there comes the Gucci sunglasses, and I couldn't care less. He would bring me all these gifts that almost to put a little band-aid, a patch on that thing, or the big flowers or whatever. There was always the next thing that came after the argument, the next material thing. So I feel like there's something attached there to, money, material wealth, and infidelity, which in a way, um, actually part of my letting go of him is that I threw everything away. I have absolutely nothing from this person in my life, nothing. He recorded a CD for me for my birthday. He's a very known person. I threw all that to the trash. I want nothing to do with carrying this baggage, physically. Uh, but how, like he will bring it through gifts, and I don't need those gifts.
Yeah, interesting. So this is actually the first. Obviously, I've heard of this from other folks too, but this is the first time someone's shared this on the podcast.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me because that's true in relationships, right? Like if you're in a unhealthy relationship, what's the band-aid there? How can there be a band-aid? And financially, you were seeing it through, gifts. So instead of maybe a healthy relationship, you were getting things or monetary things.
Absolutely. Instead of can we just talk and be open and honest, that's what all I wanted. Or just being embraced or give me a hug. Uh, yeah. But it's okay. We learn. We learn.
Yeah. Well, thank you also for sharing that as well. So as we start to wrap the conversation, one thing I like to ask is what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money in your own household?
Mm. Well, I'm very used to not spend beyond my means ever. I just never grew up with that mentality of getting in debt and go about where we can go. I do like to do every 3 months, and this is something I do. I open up all of our bank accounts. I open up QuickBooks. I see what's coming in, people that didn't pay yet. So first, what I do, I make a column, one for my partner, one for me, and I put everything we have. I like to know what's happening. I like to know where we're at. So what's all the money we have really in our lives and the money that is about to come in. And then I separate, like in Google Drive, I put on red the money, like to give you an example. Let's say there's 50 grand there combined, just to say. Okay, but I know there's the property taxes coming up, the sales taxes are coming up, blah, 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 blah. So I separate 10 grand in red. So those don't exist. We don't have those $10,000. So we have $40,000. So, and I really don't look at it. It doesn't exist. We don't touch that money. So then I go from there. I also put down how much is coming on the credit card, all the things that are going to be living in the next 15 days, more or less, or months, if I know that I have like the big things, like taxes. And yes, and then that's where we are at. That's where we are to know, okay, so from here, we can treat ourselves to whatever. Maybe it's a trip, or maybe it's putting $1,000 extra on the mortgage that for us feels great. People have different approaches. I know that, there's different ways of investment, but yeah, there's something about safety that I also have in me, that I just want my home to be my home, and it's something for me to feel safe. So I feel, and you know what, I'm very proud of that, because I've been doing this system for years, and I always kind of know where we are. Like even take 5-10 grand, I know where we are. And I love that I can also project where we're gonna be by the end of the year, with businesses that are up and running. And so I can know where we can, for example, we just hired a housekeeper that comes 3 times a week and changed my life. But because I know that we can afford 600 extra in the month for this, that is a treat, compared to before. But I can do these incredible upgrades because I know where we are. And I don't feel like I'm choking or not being responsible and not spending beyond my means.
And having the transparency there of knowing where you're at financially on a consistent basis is huge, because so many people are like, nope, don't want to know, because of whatever, money feeling that they have, but knowing and seeing and having that down on paper in front of you is huge. I commend you for that. That's great.
Thank you. And I want to say this, that when I started doing this, maybe I was talking about years ago. Okay, I have like $1,000 and it grows and grows and grows. The more you are responsible and you can, I feel like that in my experience, the more we can look at it and without fear, embrace it, you allow it to grow, I feel like things are in order. I know where they are. I know where I can put them. We even did our will last week. There was something stopping me. Again, that little scared girl. And there was something that I didn't want to make a whole lot of money. And I realized there was a fear running that, let's say I make 50 grand in 1 month. Hey, what if I die? Where's that money going to go with my baby? And we're not, how is that the estate and the probate and this and that? And I needed to calm that aspect. So now everything is in order.
So good. Well, thank you so much for sharing and thanks for joining us. And hopefully those of you listening at home will join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.